The next thing I want to speak to, the conflict of interest bill. It really was mutilated in the Senate. And the problem has been in the Senate sometimes that we have got things just pushed through. There was a time, if I may give an example of what happened to the floor of the Senate once, we had the impeachment of the Siaya governor, where the government side, which was the passed a motion, he should be impeached. And it came to the floor of the House. And then some phone calls were made, and the government side was done to shut down their own position. Something had changed. We had the IBC Amendment Act, which came from the National Assembly with a lot of issues. And the Senate arrested those issues, and people put their foot down, made proper amendments, captured a lot of the things that ended up with the demonstrations that killed the people in parts of this country, saying no IBC, no reform, no IBC. We had put all those things rejecting what had come from the National Assembly. Our chairman, I'm a member of the jail act, the chairman went and read the document, our report on the floor of the House. No, we submitted the report on the floor to the Speaker. We had a special sitting. It was during December. We had a special sitting. The Senate was on recess. We were recalled for a special sitting to pass the IBC bill. When we got there, we noticed, some of us noticed things were not going according to plan, because on the order paper, in the morning session, they'd put things that we had not been notified about, some which were not in the Gazette, which was also wrong. They said now the bill will be read, the paper will be tabled in the morning, but then it will be debated in the afternoon, the report of the committee. So we went prepared, ready to debate this motion and to justify why we felt that what had come from the National Assembly, they was not up to scratch, and we needed to deal with the question of how the IBC should be constituted. Having done case studies in the US, case studies in the UK, in most of the European countries, in Japan, in Australia, and whatever, to inform what kind of bill we need to be able to do a proper electoral body. Having looked at even our own history, IPPG, having looked at Brazil, having looked at South Africa, and especially the countries that have a presidential system like us. There are only four. I think it is the US, Nigeria, Kenya, South Korea, sometimes the Philippines. So we were able to be, our secretariat had done a very good job. We were properly informed, and we got a bipartisan position that we are going to vote in a certain way to force these changes so that what the National Assembly has done is revised. When the afternoon came and we thought the quorum was confirmed, before you could speak, the Speaker called on our chairman to address the House. What the chairman is supposed to do at that stage is to to read the report so that there can be a motion on whether we adopt it or reject it. But wonders, our chair simply stood up and said, we are withdrawing the report. First of all, you can't withdraw a report from the Senate. Once you table it, it's a property of the Senate. It cannot be voted. It cannot be rejected by a vote, or it's accepted by a vote. So it was withdrawn. Our attempts to protest were killed. The Speaker said the paper is withdrawn. The law is passed as it came from the Senate, and there with no amendments. So it went, it was signed into law, and you saw the violence that came from the Azimio side, the demos and all that damage. And you wonder how a chair, now when you ask the chair, he confides in you that, well, he was called and prevailed upon to do that. He also believes it was wrong to do that. So these are the situations that you find yourself when a parliament has been captured and is totally transactional. These kinds of things happen. So the conflict of interest bill suffered a similar fate. But after what you guys did, when parliament was independent, people have sobered up. If you have been listening to the debate in the Senate, the leader of majority apologized for having done some of these machinations. So We want to do, going forward, we want to know which bills suffered this defect and how they can be recalled to the Senate. Or if they have become law, how they can be amended. So thank you for that. You liberated the Senate in that sense. Now, if you look at the debate in the Senate today, it's different from the debate in the Senate before July, before 25th June. And that's what happened. So the conflict of interest bill has got issues, I agree, but there's a general agreement that the bill has to be recalled and to be fixed. It was manipulated in the Senate. So the other thing, we have the question of the internet in Busia. Yes, somehow the Ugandan systems seem to be stronger than the Kenyan systems in whatever. And so, and that I used to have it. I used to have it in my. I used to have it in my village also. So one time, my village is fairly remote from anywhere else, called Kwangamoru village. It's totally remote from civilization. So we used to have a lot of interference and overlapping from the Ugandan networks. So one time I ran into Bob Colimo, and after when the TV station had been banned and what have you, I ran into Bob Colimo. He was quite a gentleman, so we chatted. So when he asked me for my number, I gave him my Airtel number. And he said, for heaven's sake, how can you give me the CEO of Safaricom? How do you give me an Airtel number? You don't have a Safaricom number. I told him, yes, I have a Safaricom number, but I can't use it when I'm at home because it's overridden by the Ugandan systems, hardly audible, and sometimes by whatever. So he asked me, where is your village? So I told him my village, where it was. And within 2-3 weeks, people on the ground surveying, and they erected a mast for Safaricom. And our networks improved, and that was not enough. When Celtel saw that, they also came in my village and they erected another mast of Airtel. So my village has got 2 powerful masts. I'm able to use this what do you call Wi-Fi when I'm in the middle of my village because of those masts being there. But it's in the middle of nowhere in Busia. So the problem of Busia is marginalization. Even if you look at the power that we have in Western Province, I think it's 11 kV or something like that. So we are heavily marginalized as a region. Those who are old enough to remember that at one time Idi Amin claimed the boundary of Kenya was in Naivasha. That's when Jomo Kenyatta sort of began looking over this side of the country. Even TV stations, when we began, we used to receive the TV from Uganda. Even my father's telephone, the post office box number, when we were growing up, was in Tororo, Uganda, box 8, Tororo. And we used to go on bicycles in every Saturday to go and pick letters, check if there were letters in my father's mailing box, box 8, Tororo in Uganda. So you'll find that there's marginalization, and the Kenyan state in Busia is very, very thin. If you go to the waters of Lake Victoria, the Kenyan state is hardly visible, with Ugandan fellows coming and terrorizing our fishermen, fisher folk, and what have you. So the absence of the Kenyan state in the border areas is a thing for concern. Even the boundary of Kenya was varied somewhere in Busia by Idi Amin when there was a complaint and he built a road, and the boundary shifted by about 20 meters or something into Kenya. It is now there. It's become a de facto boundary. So these things are there. The Kenyan state is largely absent. But the irony of it is that I think Busia, Nairobi, and Mombasa are the only counties that have the entire establishment of the Kenyan government. All ministries are there. If you go to Minyeri, you might not get some ministries. But come to Busia, all the ministries in Nairobi are in Busia, all the ministries that are. So you wonder why Busia strategic as it is, important as it is so marginalized, but has a lot of money. Go to any bank in the morning in Busia and see the bundles of money being banked. You don't know where this money comes from. But when you look at the economy of the area, it's totally deprived, totally desolate. So there are issues that need to be done, some at the national level, some at the county level. But at the county level, we are beginning to deal with these issues. And we hope that along the line, the governor will stop fighting me and we cooperate and see how we can help each other to achieve this. We have got Samia and Bunyala. These are hardship areas. I had never gone there, but when I go to a place, those who know, the place like Namuduru in Samia, when I got there the first time when I was campaigning for the first time, I was shocked by the kind of water the people were drinking on the shores of Lake Victoria. They were drinking surface runoff. The kind of waters my cows in the other part of Busia cannot drink. But these are people drinking it. So I've also had to pursue that thing. And right now, if you check the map of arid and semi-arid areas, you will find counties in Busia, sub-counties in Busia, that's Funyula and Bunyala, are now clearly marked as arid and semi-arid. I'm now pushing for the same benefits that go to Northeastern for semi-arid and arid areas to come to these areas of Busia. Take the question of flooding in Bunyala. It has become a shop for some people. Yet the permanent solutions can be found. The lake is overflowing. There's a bit of backflow right now. We know that the Ugandans constructed the Bujagali a power station on Bujagali Falls. We need to know whether this is the same thing that happened in the early 60s, after the Owen Falls were set up. The lake suffered a similar backflow until diversions were created to allow water to flow into Egypt. I don't know whether the Bujagali Falls is responsible for what is happening today. A lot of people have been displaced by the lake. And many people don't know that Busia has got a big chunk of Lake Victoria. So Lake Victoria is overflowing and it's flowing backwards into the homes of people. So that could be an international problem that needs the intervention of the national government, with the Ugandan government, to find out with scientific study, why is the lake flowing back? Why is the lake not flowing into Egypt? Is the Bujagali Falls the reason, just like the Owen Falls were some time back? So the issues of Busia should be understood in that case. And I think some of them I'm able to tackle and I'm trying to tackle. Others are escalating to the national government and they should be tackled at that level. Although sometimes the problem is you go to these offices and they tell you now you need to support the president. But the opposition is one way of supporting the president. When he goes wrong and you oppose his wrong actions, you are supporting him. Those of you who watched the video of when I spoke to the president in Busia last year, telling him follow the law or we will fight you or things like those. If the president followed the law, the Genz would not have gone to the street. You would have done what you should always do. This country would be doing very well. But the disregard for the law is what is bringing us here. There was another question on corruption in Busia. Yes, I agree there's been a heavy corruption in Busia, and it just
Corruption in Busia is interfering with you, Senator. Afro, how do you want to take this further? Maybe we can give Senator.
I think what we do, corruption is
Hello, Senator. You can hear me?
endemic in Busia, just like it is in other parts of the country. And the question of law enforcement, the Office of the Auditor General is compromised. They just publish poetry about Busia. The Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission is compromised. They take no action. I've sent them intelligence on theft or pending theft, where people have come to me with the insider information. And because of what the courts ruled when I was fighting the SGR, that I got documents illegally, you can't use them. I've got a lot of court documents that I have that I acquired illegally from whistleblowers and whatever, but because they're up to the Supreme Court, they said I can't use them to any value. I'm helpless. That's why I've written to the, well, that's why I've gone to court to try and force the court itself then to order that the governor hands over the officially hands over these documents to me. But as we speak right now, the forensic audit I've done on Busia, we cannot account for 2.3 billion shillings in a budget year. The budget of Busia is only about 8 billion shillings. When you take away the salaries and whatever recurrent expenditure, then 2.8 from development cannot be accounted for. What are you dealing with? 2.3 cannot be accounted for. What are you dealing with? But that I cannot use it in court. I cannot use it anywhere because the courts say you must acquire this document through the front door. That a whistleblower cannot whistleblow to a citizen. A whistleblower cannot whistleblow to the same authorities that are doing the mistakes. Those are the courts. That's what they have done. So they have totally contained the constitution into the old order. So I've got a lot of documentation on corruption in Busia. Even so, last time there was a break-in in my office, but I'm also.com in a way. Most of these things are on the cloud. So whatever was taken did not compromise the information I have. So, but I cannot use that information in any effective way until I go to the courts and say, give me this information. When you write to the governor, when I wrote the governor saying, give me ABCD, tell me the amount of money you found on the accounts of the county government when you took over, and how did you account for it? Give me this document. How come this vehicle, which was rejected by your former, which was supplied by people close to yourself, which when brand new at Isuzu Kenya, goes only for 5.6 million shillings, and you have paid 13 million shillings for it, ex-Japan. How? All those things you don't get. When I went to court, I was even stoned when I was leaving court. Goons were hired to hammer me. Goons were sent to try and eliminate me in my home. Fortunately, I had left. So when you end up in a very toxic environment like that, then you begin asking yourself very, very difficult questions because you have what you can use to deal with the public. The courts have said you cannot use it. And like the SGR things that I was condemned for having got in the illegally, I still wonder whether I got them illegally. Because these things were brought to Parliament. There was a time when there was a heavy debate in 2011, I think, between Parliament and the executive over how the SGR had been conceptualized and effected. So when these people were summoned, they came with the documentation. It was a public hearing, which I attended. But I had the presence of mind when people went for lunch. I gave the clerks, I asked the clerks if they could photocopy for me. They said if they got paper, they could photocopy the documents. So I went, I got paper, I bought paper, I brought the clerks, they ran them for me. I got my copies, I took to the office, I came back. So when you say that I acquired the documents illegally, and this was a public forum where people attended, and the MPs who represent the people were looking at these documents, how did those documents become illegal? After the deals were made, that's when now people, when they came from lunch, I think some sweetheart deals have been made. The documents were mopped up and taken away. And when you tell the court, this is how I acquired these documents, they say you stole them. Documents tabled and are confidential. I don't know now. Then what's the purpose of public participation if what is tabled there cannot be released to the public? If it's confidential, the committee should go in camera and listen to people in camera. But if it is done in the public, with the presence of the public, how does it become confidential? And then you realize the last time the Supreme Court made a ruling, just before they banned Ahmed Nasir from appearing there, senior counsel, they made a ruling in which they dedicated a whole paragraph, 49, discussing me, saying that I'm embarrassing the court. And I'm going to take drastic action if I don't stop. I was a party to the litigation. That issue was not before the court. The court never told which video it is they had seen on social media of me condemning the court. The only thing the court that I mentioned on social media is when the Justice Lanaola attacked him that he had seen a Cyprian Nyakundi claiming that I had said I don't know ABCD. But I've never known what to say. So for me, these things that we have, what is happening in this country, the corruption in Busia is endemic, is systemic, but it's also reflective of the corruption we have across the country, including dishonesty in the judiciary. The last time we
Senator, please allow me to interject a little on one suggestion with regard to that question of evidence illegally obtained. Do you think it's time to move an amendment to the Evidence Act, to the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Act, so that we make exceptions for evidence? Because how else will you acquire evidence of corruption? It's not like these guys will come and give you evidence of them being corrupt. Is it time to amend maybe the statutes that are there, which protect that issue of using evidence that is, acquired in a questionable, quote unquote, questionable manner? And then when I have the mic, because I won't have the opportunity, a friend of mine has asked me to ask you, with that issue of recalling MPs, isn't it better to test that constitutional provision, even using that judgment of Katiba as it is right now? Because already I am aware some constituencies have begun the process before we begin looking at the issues of where the judges overreached and became managers rather than stating the law as it is. Sorry for interjecting. That's all.
Well, I think it can be done because I
if
think
you
2 years,
can add this
the timeline they gave us almost for practical purposes, it's there. But I think the LSSK needs to simply still appeal that thing so that that restriction is not imposed. But for the current parliament, that restriction I think does not apply, except for when we go towards the close and the fact that you can only attempt once and not twice or thrice. So that's what I think I would put in terms of that. What was the other question?
On the legally obtained evidence, is it time to move an amendment to the Evidence Act and to the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Act so that even if it's an exception only on matters corruption, we have an exception that you can use this evidence regardless of how it was acquired? Because corrupt people will not come and give you evidence of them being corrupt.
Yeah, that's I think what needs to be done. And so that also the Whistleblower Act should also be amended to show whom the whistleblower can be. Because take a case whereby somebody is working in a government institution, he has access to very, very sensitive information that is of corrupt nature, not necessarily the strategic interest of the country, of corrupt nature, and he goes to Boniface Mwangi and gives Boniface Mwangi that information because he has got confidence in Boniface Mwangi. He's not trusting the police, or he believes that even if he gave to the police, it may not go anywhere. The police themselves are in handcuffs from those who control executive power. So, could it be legitimate for a whistleblower to give Boniface Mwangi a document? So, and I think also the Evidence Act needs to be amended to allow for a ring-fence provision whereby citizens can inform other citizens on corruption, and the document then is tested on its validity, on its own veracity. Because these are documents saying ABCD has happened, it should be able to be adjudicated. We do not have just like the Article 40 Clause 6 says that you don't have a right to stolen property. People should not use this to have a right to stolen property by making it impossible to have evidence adduced against them. So the Evidence Act need to be looked at. And that's why I was saying that maybe people are better endowed than myself. People have gone to law school, people have studied these things, need to look at the laws of Kenya and align them to the Constitution of Kenya. And also, we need also to demarcate constitutional proceedings away from the ordinary civil proceedings and criminal proceedings. The failure to separate constitutional proceedings from ordinary civil proceedings is the other problem we are having. That largely, constitutional proceedings are handled under the civil procedures, which are limited to an extent that are protecting individuals. Constitutional proceedings are public law. The government has no rights. Rights belong to people. The government has only the mandate, is a duty holder, is a duty bearer where rights are involved. So that provision can be ring-fenced, that in constitutional proceedings, how evidence is acquired is not important. What's important is what does the evidence bring to the case? How does it help the court determine this dispute? And if we did that we had a clear procedure for constitutional proceedings, I know we have got what they call the Mutunga rules, which guide some of the proceedings under Code 22, but you also have the provisions of the Constitution which lie outside the Bill of Rights. What governs them when you're proceeding? Are they still the Mutunga rules? So there's a need to look at the laws of this country and maybe now have three procedures. We have got a procedure in criminal law, procedures in civic matters, and procedures in constitutional disputes. Then that way maybe we shall help ourselves. So the other thing I'll go to when I'm answering will be what is left. I've done with the question of tribalism. I've dealt with the issues of infrastructure in Busia. I've dealt with the question of recycling leaders generally. I've dealt with the police ruling on the use of certain gadgets during riots and the disobedience of those orders and how the fellows are supposed to be held accountable. I have also dealt with the question of the statistics. I've dealt with the right to recall in relation to the decision by the Katiba Institute. The last question is that, will I run for president if the people say I should run for president? My answer is why not? But not run for president because I want to be president, but run for president because the people think I'm the best driver of the vehicle they have invented. If there's a clear vehicle that wants to turn the direction of this country, and people think I'm the best driver to drive it, I will have a duty to do so. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. For now, nothing is ruled out, nothing is ruled in. Everything is possible, because I'll tell you, when you are at war, you don't leave the war to soldiers. War is never won by soldiers. War is won by the general population, which rises up behind the soldiers. So if there's a groundswell that we need to go in that direction, then the rules of engagement must be very clear, but it must be me leading a team where I'm not indispensable, not a personality cult. Otherwise, I'll be set up for failure. There must be clear structures within which I'll operate, within which my influence will be limited, within which I can say no to the temptations of power. I'm not superhuman. So there must be those clear terms of engagement, but most important, as part of a team, not as an individual, collecting all manner of characters to propel him over the pass line. So the issue is open. But first of all, there has to be evidence that the Genz have registered as voters. And that one is a minimum, an irreducible minimum. There has to be change to the way elections are done, that the presidential election will be declared at the constituency and not at Bomas. And then what remains just aggregation of what happened. We must have a digital election. If those things are in place, I comfortably run for the president of this country if the people of Kenya think I'm the best candidate within the particular moment to do so. But we must work and get ourselves to that point whereby we have tamper-proof elections that can be declared in real time without those who cook election having time to manipulate and interfere with the elections. That could be my answer.
Afro, I have another question to the senator. Can I proceed?